So let's start. Whoever wants to join can join. So we are talking about modus operandi of traffickers. So as we talked about in the last few classes about smuggling and trafficking, uh, we look at the fact that criminals and gangs exploit human desire for improving. Every human being has a desire for improving. That improvement could be perceived, but that betterment is perceived or could be real, but at the end of the day everybody has a desire for improvement. And one of the ways of improving life is by migrating. And in the process of migration, criminal and criminal gangs exploit human beings by generating profits. Migrants are not the only people vulnerable. In fact, a lot of vulnerability is caused by multiple reasons, as we have studied. But we will look at other the reasons being poverty, economic vulnerability, conflict. Every conflict leads to vulnerability. Climate change, storms, leads to vulnerability, educational awareness, family dynamics, environmental degradation. So there, at each moment of time, an individual can become vulnerable, and it is nothing to do with class, caste, or any other factor. Uh, and regions and communities become source of trafficking where people are vulnerable and where there is a demand for cheap labor, commercial sex are destinations for traffic people. This is what we have studied in the last two classes on human trafficking, various national and international linkages in the traffic chain. Also remember the fact that this cannot happen, by a particular gang or by a particular individual. There has to be linkages. So for traffic humans to travel from one country to another, there has to be linkages in both regions. There has to be some, bad border guards or immigration offices or law enforcement. Somebody has to be involved, otherwise it just cannot happen. We talked about Palermo Protocol. In fact, Palermo Protocol is a very important term. You might get a question on should write short notes or a long answer in terms of what did it do. So what it did was it defined trafficking in person, which also means recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of person by the threat of use of force or other forms of coercion. Remember, human trafficking is about profit. As simple as that, nothing else. And it is about exploitation of the human being. And that happens out of coercion, abduction, fraud, deception. More often than not, abduction is not there, but coercion, fraud, deception are there for people in positions of vulnerability. A consent of persons having control over another person for the purpose of, and the purpose is exploitation. So in smuggling also, people are, profit is the motive for getting one person to travel from one country to another. But more often than not, smuggling is only transport, not exploitation. Trafficking is absolute exploitation. So listen, at the end of the day, there's recruitment, there is transportation, there is exploitation, and each of the three processes or each of the three functions has its own modus operandi. So recruitment set of methods, action, and means by which to ensnare a victim to be trafficked. Also, it has to do with country of origin, countries where potential victims are coming from. So if there is a country which is extremely poor, which is where there is starvation, obviously poverty is a vulnerability factor. In that case, a fraud can be done, that if you can get a job which can get you a lot of money, which can you can feed your family, more than any person will be more than ready to take up that offer in terms of fraud or deception. Choose countries which will serve as potential victims. Characteristics like poverty and economic vulnerability, conflict and instability. So everybody tries and escape conflict and instability. Whenever there is, say, for example, when there was a Syrian civil war going on, people wanted to escape. Today, when bombing is happening in Gaza, people want to escape. If there is a political instability, people want to escape. If there is gender discrimination, at the end of the day, the desire for a better life pushes people to migrate, and this desire is exploited by criminals and criminal gangs. Lack of educational awareness, family dynamics. For example, the largest trafficking of children in the US is because these children run away from foster homes. So in the US, if a child does not have parents, in terms of, or the parents are abusive or drug addicts or other, or they are in jail, then such children are placed in foster homes. Now, these foster homes also, some foster homes are good, but large foster homes are bad in terms of abuse. Children run away from them and inevitably get ensnared with the criminal gangs. Then there are social and cultural practices. We shall see in certain African countries, there are some cultural practices in terms of taboos or witchcraft, where victims are ensnared. Natural disasters, of course, and environmental degradation. So whenever there's a typhoon which strikes, or a hurricane, or an earthquake, and people die, those children are then picked up by criminal gangs, or other people are picked up by criminal gangs. Along with these countries where the criminals or criminal organizations are well defined, also it depends on which countries the criminals and criminal gangs are well organized for these kind of activities. 80% of IOM registered victims reported that recruiter initiated a direct contact. So more often than not, let me give you an example. So whether it happens now or not, I'm not sure. But every time a child is born, especially with some male child, in any areas, you will have this transgender people coming to the house to take money. How do these people get to know that there is a child which has been born in this house? So obviously there is an indirect network of people who report about newborns. Similarly, in recruitment, there are these networks which could be petty janitors, or cleaning guys, or service delivery people, who are noticing what is happening. 78% of the forced labor victims were recruited through personal contacts or through advertisement in newspaper. Today, if you see a matrimonial, or if you see a job vacancy, how can you be sure whether it is genuine or it is a fraud? It's extremely difficult to figure it out. In fact, the last cases of trafficking, women trafficking from Punjab, which were taken to the Gulf states, were done through these recruitment agencies who took these as domestics. And internet, of course, is a whole new ball game today. Then, of course, family members, partner acquaintances work as recruiters. Uh, 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 Girls today typically, are entrapped into romance, or children are entrapped into caregiving and are recruited. Recruiter was a family member, so a lot of family, again, listen, at the end of the day, a family person or somebody becomes a recruiter based on certain needs. So for example, there is poverty. There have been so many stories in the Indian media about how parents sell their children, because at the end of the day there is no food to eat. And if there is no food to eat, then people are forced to take drastic measures, or there's a drug problem or a substance abuse. Recruitment further classified as forced, totally deceptive, or partially deceptive. So it could be either three of them. Forced, where victim trafficked had no contact before and the recruitment happened after the first contact. Then they are forced. Totally deceptive or partially deceptive, false display, concealment of facts. As I said, if you come across a job advertisement or a vacancy or let's say renting a place or a matrimonial, how can you be sure it is genuine? One of the modus operandi is to get people who are already victim to recruit new potential victims. What we call typically is network marketing. So a lot of companies earlier used to do this network marketing. Today also, in terms of influencers, share markets, con games, there is a whole lot of network marketing where potential victims are recruited, where victims are recruited to get new potential victims. Some victims are told that if you recruit new victims, you'll get freedom. UN calls this happy trafficking, a sort of a human pyramid scheme. Few trafficked victims and release sometimes provide a financial incentive to return home and recruit more victims. So, and then the victim typically thinks this is the way to buy freedom and money. They will get more people. So, case study sampled 26 individuals in the US and find three types of relationship that leads to commercial sexual exploitation: friends, romantic relationships, family. Friends more often than not, either through peer pressure or modeling a way to survive and to obtain money. At the end of the day, economics, and that is one of the reasons why MDI 7 and 8 is being taught uh, or is a part of the curriculum of migration and diaspora, because economic plays a very important part in every process of migration. Romantic relationships with boyfriend who later becomes pimp, use coercion and force to be. Indian case studies, a lot of Indian case studies, especially from backward states, typically has this as a modus operandi: romantic relationships. Individuals in the US who perpetrate sex trafficking tend to recruit by targeting vulnerable children, like runaways, who respond to overtures of romance or promising money, drugs, alcohol. Controlling victims of trafficking by sex, physical and psychological abuse. And then once you are making contact or selecting a victim, then how do you control? There are again modus operandi in terms of how do you control. More often than not, it is by physical or sexual abuse. It is by psychological abuse, uh, to prevent them from leaving. Say for example, once the traffic victim is transported, then there is this fear of law enforcement. So a lot of traffic victims do not come forward because they are scared of the law enforcement. Then there is something called sexual grooming model of child trafficking, which the internet has actually empowered criminals and criminal gangs. Victim selection, gaining access, trust development on specific internet internal and external vulnerabilities. So and it's not very difficult. You see a lot of children on the road. Children obviously psychologically are less developed than adults, based on various conditions, family dynamics, gaining access and isolation, manipulating existing relationship, isolating the victim from emotional support, physical. And internet has helped it because for a simple reason, today a lot of internal secrets or specific secrets are shared by children on internet, on social media. And once these secrets are shared, that is why they keep saying do not share too much on the internet, because you do not know who is looking at that. Oversharing does not help. Then there is trust development of identified victim by various ways, by giving gifts, and then there is desensitization to sexual content, touch, after trust has been established, and then post abuse maintenance. So there are specific steps in terms of how victims are identified and then trafficked. Can differ based on country and context, international versus domestic. So, a domestic traffic victim is treated in a different way, is identified in a different way. An international traffic victim is identified and treated in a different way. Difference between domestic and international sex traffic processes in the US in terms of victim selection decisions, whom to select. Traffic targeted minors and individuals who had run away from home. It was poor, uneducated, or homeless who were targeted for international. Also, typically, if the victim does not have a family, orphans, victims of, accidents, because then nobody would ask. In fact, if you see Hollywood movies or series, you will see, even people are selected for killing, or typically serial killers select victims who do not have anybody to ask for. So they are typically separate because less questions means easier to get away with. Vulnerable girls and women with free education, boarding, lodging, jobs in metropolitan, fake marriage proposal. So everything could be today a potential modus operandi for trafficking. If you look at it, this romantic interest as an attack factor is one of the luring strategies whereby girls are deserted or sold to brothels. Now, again, one of the things that we talked about in one of the earlier units is because mostly people are sensitized to sex and relation between sex and girls, and boys, men, and sex are kind of become invisible. But boys are also LGBTQ plus are also used as sex objects, are trafficked for sex. Convincing parents and other members they can help with education, and this happens typically with poor areas, poor families, backward areas. Past 3 decades formalized global recruitment industries have become gatekeepers to temporary. What we have been seeing as a change of the production process worldwide in terms of distribution, outsourcing, offshoring. Now, and because everything has become more contract based, the contractors then employ recruiting agencies for hiring workers. These recruiting agencies also a lot of times become the front end for trafficking, because they have a legit business in terms of recruitment, and they then involve in a human trafficking rings. Temporary employment in low wage occupation for millions of migrant workers, especially in Asia. Enforced labor rights that over the third party labor recruiters facilitate employment. And if you see, there is a parallel between this and indentured labor, where these people were recruited by their own community leaders for indentured labors and taken abroad. One of the most main entry points into human trafficking. So you see, what I've been telling in other units, more often than not, there is a cyclic nature of things which are happening. There is a connection between economics and various other things. And in fact, 7, 8, and 9 that way are very much related. in terms of subjects. Recruiters have been linked to traffickers through their practice of charging migrants recruitment fees, a financial that can lead to debt bondage. We talked about debt bondage. So, what was debt bondage? To do a recap, debt bondage is, let's say, I am a poor person. I want to. I have got a particular skill. I'm looking for a job. The recruiter tells me that there is a job available, let's say in the Middle East. Now, to get to the Middle East, I need a visa. I need a passport. I need a plane ticket. Now, the recruiter says that fine, I will arrange for your passport, visa, and the plane ticket, and you can go and work. Once all these arrangements are done and they put me on the plane and I reach the Middle East, they said that to do all these, we have spent 5 lakhs on you. Now you need to pay off 5 lakhs before we give you your passport and your visa and your other documents. Now that's a debt bondage because I'm stuck. And now when I'm stuck and I am put with an employer who's abusive, I can't leave. Because if I try and leave, the law enforcement will catch me because I don't have my documents. So how did you come inside? I cannot report on to the person who has the documents because if I report, I will be in jail. And inevitably, the recruiter would have bribed the law enforcement out there. So you see, that's how the debt manage and you get into an exploitative mode. So let's look at some modus operandi in transport. Traffickers are logistics specialists moving people across vast distances with safe house. And there are obviously safe house. Again, as I said, when people move, there are other people who are involved. It just cannot happen. Other people who are complicit in the movement. Route is indirect as police roads, border checkpoints, and efficient and honest law enforcement need to be avoided. Good intelligence capacity to successfully avoid various obstacles and deliver their human product. And that is where criminal gangs are required. So an individual cannot do all this. Gangs are required because then gangs have logistic capabilities. The end destination is often where the diaspora community can absorb the traffic. And that's where diaspora comes in. Because at the end of the day, without people who know you can receive and distribute traffic victims. It's not only the diaspora community, but diaspora community is one of the enabling factors. Traffickers can choose one of multiple transit, and inevitably between countries there could be a transit country, source to between source and destination, transit country, proximity by land, sea, insufficient or weak legislation, liberal immigration policies, operational criminal infrastructure to facilitate entry. So that is how gangs are operating, and obviously, then gangs have what we studied in MDI 8 in terms of global uh, uh, commodity chains. Now you have global criminal chains where in human trafficking, humans are handed from one chain to another. It's a network. Land routes are the easiest way to move people across. Then there are green borders, which are forested areas. Land trafficking allows many people to be moved in a single venture using buses or trucks or ships where they use containers. Air route is fastest growing method, but air route you can do few numbers. And then there is of course immigration, which has to be taken care of. organizers of route, there are smaller players working as guides to transport people. So obviously, it's a chain. It's a commodity chain. The commodity is a human being here. Northeast India, trafficked women are transported using air from their earlier bus and train modes, as bus stand and railway stations are under surveillance. So as law enforcement comes up to speed, the modus operandi used by traffickers change. Also, as Guwahati is under surveillance, traffickers use small railway stations like Nagaon and Lumding. And that is where the role of NGOs, the role of community-based organization, upgrading, the knowledge of people, awareness of people to trafficking, various kinds of trafficking, because if it is not done, nobody knows what's going on. Then, of course, there is the modus operandi of exploitation. So we talked about recruitment, we talked about transport. Now look at the operandi of exploitation. Exploitation of prostitution. Other prostitution is just one form. There are other forms of sexual exploitation. Then, of course, forced labor or services, slavery or practice similar to slavery, servitude, removal of organs. Pornography industry is now internationally its production and distribution. And in fact, with internet, you don't even need to move people. The industry keeps looking for newer and cheaper environment. What we talked about in production techniques, where the capitalist is looking to reduce cost. Wherever they are able to reduce cost and increase their profits, they will go and do it. Cheaper environments to produce, new markets to sell. Hence, countries which are women are vulnerable to exploitation are new recruiting grounds. And this all happens because there is a demand. uh, I hope all of you are with me till now.
Yes, sir.
This seems more straightforward. In fact, if a
Yes, sir.
question comes in terms of modus operandi, then you can break it up into recruitment, transportation, and exploitation and detail it. Various forms of violence and abuse while in traffic situation. Obviously, then once a person realizes that he or she is trafficked, then the criminal gangs need to manage the victim. And remember, with human beings, there are various vectors of managing abuse, threats to individual or their families, frequent in agriculture, construction, and manufacturing sector, denied essential rights to movement, food, drink. In fact, if you see, we have had the case of a diplomat, Indian diplomat. We have seen the recent case of the Hinduja family in Switzerland, where they denied. We come across middle class people in Delhi. There was air hostess or a pilot couple in Dwarka, denied food, lock up the child in the house, beat the child up. Typical behavior of control. Essential movement, food, drink, medicine, all of them or some of them. Given drugs or alcohol, common about victims of sexual exploitation. Because once you get the victim hooked on substance, then inevitably you can continue to give substance, and the victim will more often comply. Withholding ID or travel documents, debt bondage, frequently used to control individuals, withholding wages, uh, very common technique, because you're in a foreign country, you do not have your documents, you're always scared of law enforcement. 70% victim experience psychological violence, physical violence, with 1 in 10 experience sexual violence, especially female and minors. Again, the data on boys and men are less. There was this story in a lot of media houses about how Israeli forces sexually abused Palestinian male prisoners who were in their jails. So typically, those male stories or boy stories somehow do not come because of stigma. They are not reported. In fact, when the U.S. Reports came out of how the Iraqi prisoners were sexually abused male prisoners. So sexual violence can be against women or against men. It is just that most people are aware about sex and women. Internet has opened a whole new chapter and a whole new ball game. Internet provides anonymity, virtuality. Internet allows criminals and criminal gangs to reach all part of the world without physically being there. In fact, with internet-based technologies, traffickers may not be even required to transport the victim. So now think about it. There is a demand for pornography. Uh, a local, criminal or a person with a motive for making money can exploit let's say a girl in a rural area, make a movie with a smartphone, use editing techniques, upload it to the criminal gang who pays him or her on that particular money that is then streamed. All kinds of things can happen. There was this case of a CISF personnel employed in Delhi Metro who uploaded videos of young people in public display of affection onto porn sites. Internet has opened a new, totally new modus operandi in terms of trafficking. Internet-based trafficking is extremely diverse. It is as simple as luring potential victims through online advertising, phishing, and targeting vulnerable potential victims. And listen, with social media today, in spite of the fact that the social media platforms talk about 18, you have kids as young as 8 or 9 who are on social media. They are posting pictures on Instagram. They are posting high definition pictures on Instagram. They are talking about their romances. They are talking about, their breakups. Any individual in a breakup or let's say has appeared for an examination, has failed, is vulnerable. They can also communicate securely with victims, clients, transferring money between criminal organizations, coercing victims into establish. So there's this thing about a hello or a hi from an unknown WhatsApp number with a DP of a young girl. The boy responds. The boy and then there is an intimate chat. Pictures are exchanged. Then it is realized that those pictures could be leaked to the friends of the boy or his wife or his parents, and that is a traffic situation. Child sexual abuse, online content, selling harvested organs. You can match organs using the internet. You can pick up child, soldiers using the internet, and with mobile cameras, you can immediately identify a victim. You can take a photograph, lead a gang to a particular victim, and so on and so forth. Real-time updates, posting on social media, peer-to-peer messaging, useful for criminal activities. Not only recruit victims, helps with clients interested in purchasing exploitative services. Demand. The demand becomes a very important factor. Average age decreasing, children and teenagers are often quoted. The sexual grooming process, the grooming process. You get a friend request, you are in that vulnerable age, you are in that particular age, you have a very traditional family, don't do this, parents would not talk, parents would not explain what is what, deceptive ploys of attention or friendship, which are then exploited in recruiting potential victims. Large amount of parents today are not even aware what their children are doing online. They just hand them a smartphone and that is it. And that has made the job of criminal and criminal gangs so easy. And then there is digital technology service for hire. Organized criminal recruit hackers, cyber experts to support their operations. You can actually also traffic technology guys into helping criminal gangs by deceit, by coercion. They don't even know that they are doing this illegal stuff. And then money is always a motive. So you don't have a job, you are a great hacker, you are then approached by a criminal who says that you can make this much money if you do this. The lure of money is too strong. A case from Belarus involved the use of an application called MoneyGram to transfer money along with other computer applications to recruit or communicate with victim and clients, removing the need for physical interaction. Criminals are aware of risk of technology uses with law enforcement, also quickly move between public social media encrypted applications like WhatsApp and Telegram. So remember, the victims also, the criminals also upgrade technology, keep track of what's going on in law enforcement. Obviously, they have informants in the law enforcement. So it's a cat and mouse game. Use what is called hunting strategies for online recruitment. Classified sites and freestanding web page were earlier used, mid to 2000, to post fake job listings, replaced in popularity with social media platforms. Main place to advertise fake jobs. So LinkedIn might be advertising a job. How do you know this person? So look at how most people react to social media. They look at a profile, they look at a photo, they look at a name, and they look at the bio, and they genuinely think it is a person, not realizing the fact that it could be it could be a it could be a bot, it could be a computer program, it could be somebody mimicking another person, identities have been stolen. Share of victim traffics using social media have grown from 0 to 51% in the 79 cases they study. So again, first you need to identify the case to study them, and you can only identify the case if there is a case which is detected or somebody comes forward. Now look at how what is happening in the US will affect everything. with with the new Trump administration looking at defunding, for example, the new administration has come out of WHO, has US aid, has defunded US aid. They are talking about defunding Department of Education. So obviously, all the programs which are socially, inclined suddenly does not get funds. When they do not get funds, the NGOs do not get funds, the public universities do not get funds, the research suffers, and in that vacuum, criminal gangs take over. Nothing stops. Quoting an NGO working in northeastern state of Meghalaya writes that traffickers are using social media to trick young girls in northeast to become their online girlfriends, trap them in love relationship, forcing them to migrate to metropolitan cities where they're forced to engage in sexual work. It's not just Meghalaya. It is. You can see it in other states. You can see it in other countries. Wherever there is, lack of work, there is poverty, or there is other vulnerability. There is insurgency. It would be happening in Manipur also, because there is insurgency. There is social conflict which is happening. Useful for assisting flow across borders, as they provide efficient and convenient ways to facilitate international money transfer. So, whereas international money transfer has become has made it easy for migrants now to remit, it has also made it easy for criminals to exchange money. The unintended consequence. So, if to travel in in Europe, you need a Schengen visa. Schengen visa also allows interstate movement of traffic within Europe. It has also allowed traffickers to move people between various states in Europe. Cross-border trafficking requires involvement of several connected perpetrators. It cannot happen with one or two people or one or two gangs. There are various in between links of the chain. It's a chain. Internet can be used to live stream acts of exploitation as a broadcast or a narrowcast to consumers across the world. People are willing to pay for such a thing. A group of traffickers who organized and managed a cyber sex den to exploit victims to coerce performance in front of webcams. So now your child has got a computer, has got a webcam, in the sense that internet enabled. The parents do not want to upgrade themselves to understand what is internet, what is the child doing, and the child has got entrapped by a trafficker and is coerced to perform a sexual act, and the parents don't even know. The child is sitting in the next room. Children being at a heightened state of risk in front of webcams connected with abusers worldwide, by parents being aware of this, without the parents being aware of this abuse. Exploitation of children and distribution of abusive material using digital tools. There was this case of, I think, a Brazilian model influencer who was a front for traffickers. Anybody, so because it's anonymous and it's virtual, so you do not know. Technologies are also used to maintain coercive control. Recruiting stage, traffickers lure potential victim into sharing revealing pictures under the guise of a modeling job, romantic license. then use the same pictures. As I said, you get a video message, for friendship, for romantic listening. There is a sexting going on. Then there are pictures exchanged. Now the same material can be used against you. Social media to monitor victims' profile, track their whereabouts. And now with mobile phones, you can track a person in real time. So far, so good. Still with me, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, Vinod is there and gives a thumbs up. Southern states of Telangana and the traffickers use online modus operandi to traffic babies and surrogate mothers for illegal adoption. Okay. So what I'm giving you specific examples could be there in other countries, other states. So these are based on specific, researches or specific cases. So, for example, if there is a demand for adoptions in the West, there is a match because there is poverty, surrogate mothers. Also, motherhood is also in terms of, there is somebody who cannot become a mother. There is a surrogate mother. There is a supply and demand situation. Wherever there is a demand, there will be a supply available. For example, I gave you the example of how Chinese prisoners who are executed, their organs are harvested and matched with American clients and sent out there. Exploitation of traffic victims into committing identity thefts and data fraud, where victims were kept in abandoned buildings under inhuman conditions, given fake identities. So today, you may not even be dealing with a criminal gang, but somebody who's already working in a traffic situation, doing you harm. In fact, a lot of financial scamming could be done by individuals who themselves are trafficked. And this has again become a worldwide phenomenon. Okay, so let's sum up. Palermo Protocol becomes important. Modus operandi can be structured in three different phases of recruitment, transportation, exploitation. Recruitment methods, action, and means to ensure a victim to be trafficked. Connected with country of origin, it also is whether you're doing it for domestic or you're doing it for international. 80% reported a recruitment initiated a direct contact, 96% children, 92% of sexual direct contact. Because inevitably, and that direct contact today with internet technologies can be online. Get people who are already victims of traffic to recruit new potential victims, forced labor situation. Third party recruiters have become fronts, facilitate employment, transportation, land routes are easiest, internet to change the modus operandi, provided anonymity and virtuality. There are some references. These are books. In fact, some are there. When you see the unit, there are other references also. And again, as I said, you would need to craft an answer in the type of question which comes your way. Okay, let me stop here. Tell me, hi. Tell me if there is any questions. Guys, any questions? Film star also adopts some children. That's right. See, again, Sanjeev, you need to, as I was saying, and because this is, and I've been teaching the economic modules also with you, it's a pure supply and demand. Wherever there is demand, supply will come from somewhere. Now, uh, more often than not, criminals or criminal gangs will look at what kind of demand is coming, and then they will, because at the end of the day, these work as capitalist organizations. Profit. At the end of the day, human being also becomes a commodity for profit. So how can I profit out of a human being? So then each part of a human being, in terms of labor, in terms of sex, in terms of organs, everything can be commodified and sold in terms of profit.
Sir,
Yes, Gurpreet.
sir, my submission regarding recruitment,
Huh.
unauthorized travel agents on one side,
Huh.
and people's desire to migrate by one or another means is another side. So this is the most convenient situation for trafficking. Is it so?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, remember, there is a desire for improving life. And more often than not, this, see, look at it. The desire for possessing an iPhone gets a lot of people to take loans.
Sir.
Now, taking a loan, if you do not have a means, getting yourself into debt.
Sir.
Similarly, a desire for a better life, and then you have these people who then can be totally deceptive or partially deceptive and snare you into migration because there is a desire. That's how we were talking about vulnerability and potential victims.
True, sir.
And one desire is, a person has enough, but yet the desire is there. Then there is a second desire where the person does not have enough. So look at poverty. Now, if you come across a poor family, they are willing to just about do anything to get 2 meals. Now, how do you work that out? So obviously, these parents are selling their children. They are willing to do anything to be able to afford 2 meals, and they are extremely vulnerable, as are orphans, or let's say a tragedy has struck, a fire has happened, a earthquake has happened, extremely vulnerable. So at any moment, as that's why I said, all individuals in this world are vulnerable at some point or the other.
Right, sir.
It is just that class and caste then add, a further value. So if you are a lower class and a lower caste, then you are more vulnerable because your networks are not there. And then people come and deceive you into getting you to do things. These people get trafficked then.
Got it, sir. Thank you so much.
Any other question? Okay. So if there is no question, well, let's call it a day. Vinod, yeah?
Sorry, sir. Just wanted to ask, there are a lot of checks in terms of this borders and controls and everything, right? All the countries do have. But I'm still wondering how, I mean, you did mention about it, like there are many ways how people are trafficked. But still, so isn't that the governments aren't aware about like how this is happening? I don't believe that. I believe they might be aware, but why are we not able to control this?
Okay. So look at the fact, when I typically take the case of, these women from Punjab, various districts, who were trafficked into in the Gulf area. Now, Gulf have this, and typically there are these third-party recruiters. Now, these third-party recruiters lobby. They have political backing. Tell me one thing: how was this Kingfisher aircrafts guy who was in loan, who was told a defaulter, managed to escape? How did Lalit Modi a proclaimed offender managed to escape, get a citizenship. There have been enough high profile cases who managed to escape. So obviously there was either a political backing or there was laxity in immigration custom. When you and me try and move out of immigration and customs, we are very easily questioned, looked at. So obviously if a person high profile or low profile as moving, so somebody is complicit in between. Now please understand, government is a huge entity. It's an abstract entity. The government is comprised of individual people working individual jobs, and these individual people in working individual jobs have individual motives, and money becomes a very important motive. There could be a threat motive. So you there is this new series which has come on, I think it's an Apple series called Hijack, where they get the lady who scans the luggage, take their families as hostage and tells her to pass a luggage which carries guns. So that is where checks and balances come. But again, understand, with various checks and balances, at the end of the day, the whole chain is controlled by human beings. And human beings are subjective people with desires, with greed, with motive. Vinod?
Understood, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So in case there is no other question, we'll call it a day. We'll meet each other next Saturday with the next unit of MDI 7, and we'll take it on. Have a wonderful week ahead. Goodbye and good night then. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye bye.